Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Beitzah Lamed Aleph. We begin at the Mishnah right on top of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Mevi'in eitzim min asad. On Yom Tov, one may deliver some wood from his field, min ha-mechunos, provided that those twigs have already been collected, gathered, and perhaps piled up from before Yom Tov, which is an indication of the fact that it's being prepared for firewood use. So although it's a sada, which is an unenclosed, exposed area, but since he had gathered that wood in advance of Yom Tov, that indicates that he's going to use it as firewood, and that removes any muktzah concerns. Another option, umin karfif, and he can bring some wood from a karfif, a storage area, a fenced-off, enclosed area. Afilu min ha-mefuzar. In this case, even if those twigs are dispersed throughout the karfif, but since it's in a secure area, he depends on it. He anticipates its use, and it's considered miyuchad and mezuman for firewood use, in which case it's not muktzah. So it's one or the other. Either location, sitting in a secure area where he depends on that for his supply, or if it's an open area but it's been gathered in advance for this purpose. Either way, there's no muktzah concerns. Ezehu karfif. How exactly do we define a karfif in the context of our discussion? Kol shesamach le'ir, as long as it's within the city limits. Divid Rabbi Yehuda. Some explain within the municipal boundaries. It's the 70 plus a bit amma. Within that proximity, the karfif is considered a proper karfif, close by and accessible, in which case he relies on its content for his firewood supply, and it's not muktzah. Rabbi Yossi Eimer, he has a different way to set the value. As long as you need to get into it by way of a key, you need a key to open the lock. It's a secure, enclosed area. In that case, we consider it to be a karfif. Even if it's not really close by, it's far away, it's just about within Tchum Shabbos, 2,000 amma of the city. That's okay because it's a safe, secure, enclosed area, in which case he depends on the wood supply in that area for his firewood use. Let's go over to Rashi on the top line. Is gathering detached twigs, obviously. So if it's in a sada, you can take it as long as it's min ha-mechunos im kinsei me'erev Yom Tov. It was already pre-gathered, the gali daiti. By doing so, he has demonstrated the dalayu samech that he's depending on this for his use. Ve'enan muktzah, it's not considered set aside. Ala aval ha-mefuzar and muktzah. But those twigs which are dispersed throughout his sada, they're muktzah. There was never an intention to use them as firewood. Umina karfif, if it's in an enclosed area, shumer shtamer, mukaf, saviv, it's a safe, secure, enclosed area. Afilu mefuzar shebay lo yiksim edaitoi, even dispersed twigs, he still has his mind on it because he knows he'll go to the karfif, he'll find some twigs. It's a safe area, and therefore it's considered designated for this purpose. What is a karfif according to Rabbi Yehuda? Samach le'ir mamish. According to Rabbi Yossi, as long as you need a key to get in there, I feel Tchum Shabbos, b'soifa, all the way at the end of Tchum Shabbos, around 2,000 away from the city, it's still considered close enough and something that he depends upon, because we're speaking about a secure location, and therefore it's miyuchat for his use. So before we get into the discussion between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi on how to define a karfif, which will be discussed later on in the Gemara, let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. You need one positive element here: location or position. If it's a secure location, anything within it is considered slated for domestic use, even though it's dispersed. On the other hand, if position is good, it's collected, it's mechunas, it's considered mezuman for personal use, despite the fact that it's sitting in a sada, an exposed area. So one or the other. either secure or gathered. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, no. You need two favorable elements to remove the muktzah concern. Ein mavin eitzim element amuchonasin. Number one has to be gathered. Shebe karfif, inside this enclosed area. So the only way you can bring wood on Yom Tov is if it's coming from a secure area, a karfif, and has been gathered in advance. What do you mean? In our Mishnah we learned one or the other is sufficient. Mina karfif, if you have the secure location, vafilu mina mefuzar, even if it's dispersed, that's okay because it depends on it. Mas nisin yichidahi. Our Mishnah, which holds that one element is enough, is following a das yachid, the opinion of an individual who was challenged by the Chachamim, who hold that really you need two positive elements to allow use. Desani, where do we find the das yachid? Amar Shimon Lazar. Shimon Lazar's presentation indicates as such. He says there was never a machlokes between Misham and Bitzil as pertaining to Hilchos Muktzah al hamafuzar and Shabbasadis. If you have two negative ingredients, it's mefuzar, it's dispersed, you don't have the position, and it's Shabbasadis in an open field, you don't even have that location. She'ein mevi'in. You can't use that wood because he never really expected to use it for Yom Tov. It's not designated for Yom Tov use. It's sitting out in the field. Who knows it's going to be there? He didn't collect it. It's muktzah. So that's agreed upon by all shitas. On the other hand, if you have two positive elements, so you have it gathered, that's position. You have the karfe, secure location. That's certainly something that he can depend upon and rely upon, and he prepared it for Yom Tov use. Shemavin all agree in this case it's not muktzah. You can use it. On one then do we have an achlekes when there's one positive and one element. Alam fuzarn is dispersed, so you're lacking the positioning. Shebe karfiv, but it's in a secure location, so you have location without position. Or va'al hamechunosin shebesadis, it's collected but out in the field. You have position but not location. Here we have one positive and one negative. Shebesham oimrim lo yavi. Bisham say it's muktzah. That's not enough to consider it designated for Yom Tov use. According to them, either one of these conditions suffices to make it something that he depends upon, something which he intends on using, and takes away the muktzah concern. So here we have the das yachad of Shimon Lazar, who presents the halach as such, that according to Beitzah, one either or the other is enough, whereas according to Chachamim, who disagree with Shimon Lazar's version of events, you need both elements present, position and location, and that's where Shmuel was coming from. The only way you can use eitzim is if they were coming from a karfif, a secure location, which you can depend upon, and also it had to be gathered before in mechunasim. Amarava, ale kanim ale gefanim. Reed leaves or vine leaves, which are lightweight material, afagav de mechan filuhu. Even though we gather them together, put them together in a pile, since they're lightweight, and as soon as the first zika, the first wind is madly comes along and blows, it's going to disperse them. In that case, we treat them as though they're dispersed. They don't have the model, the advantage of the fact that they were gathered, and they're considered to be muktzah, because it's not something that he can rely upon. He's not semich das, Rashi says. Mistama, he figures next wind will just blow them away, and realistically, he can't depend upon them, and they're not muktzah, and they're not considered designated. They're muktzah. However, but if he placed a kli on these leaves, a paperweight, so he did this in advance of Yom Tov, Shapridami. In that case, we say it's considered properly gathered material. And the Chiddush the Mepharshim point out is that even if it somehow got dispersed, it's still considered a non-muktzah item because he gathered them securely, anticipating their use. So, bottom line, the only way you can use firewood on Yom Tov from your field, from your karfiv, is if somehow you designate them for Yom Tov use, removing any muktzah concerns. How do you do that? Well, according to Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, you need two elements. They have to be positioned in a secure location, which you can depend on. And number two, you have to indicate that you're preparing them for use. How do you do that? By gathering them together. According to Rav Shimon Elazar's version of events, which is our Mishnah, one or the other is enough. Either location, karfeif, or gathered together, in which case location is irrelevant. So Mishnah spoke about a karfeif. What is a karfeif? Ezu karfeif, in the context of our halacha. So Rabbi Yehuda says, kol shesamach le'ir, if it's close to the city. Rabbi Yossi says, you need a key to get in there, to unlock the door to the karfeif. So now, what were they arguing about? What's the machlekes? There are exactly 3 ways to understand the machlekes. Iboilu, so listen to this shaila. Heichei ka'amar, what did Rabbi Yehuda have in mind when he said kol shesamach le'ir? Does he need 2 conditions to be met? Number 1, closeness, accessibility, and also, in addition to that, security and safety. With the Islay Pesach has provided there's a lock and key to allow entry. So it's a close place and secure place, in which case it's fully dependable for firewood supply. So Rabbi Yehuda says 2 conditions need to be met. And perhaps Rabbi Yossi is coming to argue on that and says no, one or the other is enough. You don't need 2 conditions. Even this Pesachas, I agree. If it's close to the city, that's okay. Accessibility removes muktzah. But you know what? Even if it's at a distance, but if it's a secure location, even the Islay Pesachas, if it has a lock, if you need a key to get in there, even if it's further, if it's within Tchum Shabbos, just barely accessible, it's okay, because safety and security compensate for lack of closeness. So one or the other is enough to make it designated for Yom Tov use. Is that the way to understand the machlekes? Again, Rabbi Yehuda says 2 conditions need to be met: closeness, samach le'ir, accessibility, and it needs to be a secure place which you can depend upon. Whereas Rabbi Yossi responds, either this or that. That's what I want to learn. Idilma, or perhaps let's learn the machlekes differently. Both opinions, both Tanoim, require only 1 criterion. The question is which one, and that's the machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda holds samach le'ir is a criterion, closeness, accessibility. Ease of access is primary, and that's what determines, and that's what makes it non-muktzah. What Rabbi Yossi says, security, dependability, is the most important factor, and that is kaiveya, that it's not muktzah. So perhaps that's the pshat. Oidilma, hachi ka'amar. Rabbi Yehuda says like this: kol shesamach le'ir, if it's close to the city, that's the ikar, that's the determinant factor. Bein the Islay Pesachas, bein l'Islay Pesachas, whether or not it has a lock and key, closeness is the determining factor. Rabbi Yossi responds and says, no, I hold security is the determinant. Shabbos doesn't have to be close by, even if it's far away. Provided you need a key to get in there. But if it doesn't have that element, even if it's close to the city, what good is it? It's here today, gone tomorrow. If it's not secure, he's not going to depend on it. He's not really preparing it. He's not really being making it for Yom Tov. So according to this approach, all agree 1 element is enough. According to Rabbi Yehuda, closeness, accessibility. According to Rabbi Yossi, safety and security. Tashma, listen to this. I have a 3rd approach. Mediktani Rabbi Yossi Omer. And basically, this approach is going to hold that Rabbi Yehuda requires samach le'ir, as he indicates in the Mishnah. Closeness is what determines. That's it. It's that or nothing. Rabbi Yossi says 1 or the other. So this is a 3rd approach to the machlekes. Right, we began initially, perhaps the machlekes is whether you need 2 conditions according to Rabbi Yehuda or 1 condition according to Rabbi Yossi. The next option was all agree 1 condition. Depends which one. Rabbi Yehuda says closeness. Rabbi Yossi says security. The 3rd option coming up now is going to say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, samach is what is kaiveya, closeness. That's it. Whereas Rabbi Yossi says either closeness or security. Tashma, Begdatan, Rabbi Yossi Omer. Take a look at the Lashon HaMishnah. What does Rabbi Yossi say? Kol shenichnasen lo b'Pesachas va'afilu b'Teichshom Shabbos. Rabbi Yossi responds to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that you need samach li'er. He responded by saying, you know what? Even if it's far away, as long as you need a key to get in there, it's a secure location which safeguards your firewood. Even if it's far away, that's okay. That makes up for lack of close proximity. It's pretty clear that Rabbi Yossi does not require a lock and key, or else he would have just said, you know what? You need a pesachas, and that's it. He elaborates further. He says, if you have a pesachas, you can have it even far away, which indicates that if it's close by, you don't need that security element there. So it's one or the other, either closeness or dependability. Shmamina, Rabbi Yossi, tarti l'kula ka'amar shmamina. It's pretty clear that according to Rabbi Yossi, he's going l'kula both ways, meaning this or that. Either samach is enough or pesachas is enough shmamina. This is a good raya. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda evidently holds closeness is the determinant. Right? That's it. Why? Because Rashi explains. If Rabbi Yehuda would require two things, samach and pesachas, it wouldn't make sense that Rabbi Yossi would respond by saying, you know what? If you need a key to get in there, it can be far away. As though he's introducing the concept of a key. If Rabbi Yehuda requires closeness and a key, then it's already been introduced to the Mishnah. Why is Rabbi Yossi introducing it as though it's a new factor? He should have responded to Rabbi Yehuda by saying, no, you don't need both, one or the other. The fact that Rabbi Yossi comes back and says, you know what? If there's a key needed, then you could have it even far away, as though he's introducing a new concept. Apparently Rabbi Yehuda was not requiring a lock and key. So that proves to us, according to Rabbi Yehuda, all you need is closeness and that's it. Otherwise it's not the karfif that would allow gathering from within on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yossi says, that's true. Closeness is important. Accessibility is valuable. But on the other hand, if it's a secure location, that's also a positive element. And that makes up for the fact that it's not so close. Omer of Salah, Omer of Yirmiyah, Lach Rabbi Yossi lahakal. We follow lahalacha. Rabbi Yossi shita lekula. So one or the other is sufficient. In summation, what is considered a karfif? We have two possible definitions: close to the city or an enclosure which requires a key to get in. We have three possible presentations of the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Initially we figured perhaps Rabbi Yehuda is speaking about two conditions that need to be met. According to Rabbi Yossi, one is enough. Next option was, according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, one is enough. Question is which one? Rabbi Yehuda requires closeness. Rabbi Yossi requires security. And the conclusion was that according to Rabbi Yehuda, one is enough. Which one? Samach. According to Rabbi Yossi, either one. Either samach or pesachas. Continues the Mishnah. Ein mevakin eitzim. On Yom Tov, you may not chop wood. Loimen occurs not from beams. You can't chop a pot of beam and use it as firewood. Nor can you use a beam which happened to collapse on Yom Tov. Great, a firewood. No, you can't do that. And in case you do want to chop, the Gemara will go on to elaborate on this Mishnah, how the Reish and the Sefer work together. But in any case, when you are actually chopping in Yom Tov, be careful not to use professional tools which give the impression of malacha, which is inappropriate for Yom Tov. Rather, use an improvised method of chopping your logs. You can't use an axe, nor a sword, or a sickle, a meat cleaver. Somehow you figure a way to use that to chop your wood and split your logs. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Va'amris reisha and vakin klal. We end off the Mishnah by giving you tips on how to chop wood, which appears from the reisha that it's not something to be done at all in Yom Tov. The Gemara figures perhaps is a tircha concern. You're not meant to do that on Yom Tov. So why does the Mishnah give us methods on how to do it? Va'amris reisha and vakin klal. The Mishnah is meant to be learned as though it's missing some word, and learned as follows. Mishnah begins with a different concern. There are two separate concerns in the Mishnah. One is muktzah, and if you manage to get around that, You have another concern. It shouldn't appear like you're involved in malacha by using professional tools. So initially the Mishnah begins with the muktzah concern. You can't chop from the pile of beams awaiting construction. That's muktzah. Nor chopping apart a beam that happened to break on Yom Tov, because remember, going into Yom Tov was part of your structure, part of your house. It's off limits. And that muktzah status remains throughout. So initially we speak about muktzah. Then the Mishnah continues. You could certainly chop apart a beam which broke before Yom Tov and was prepared in advance of Yom Tov for firewood use. So now we address the muktzah concerns. Proceeds further the Mishnah by saying, but still be careful on which method you're going to use when you chop that wood. Do it in a manner which keeps with the spirit of Yom Tov. When they chop, not with an axe, like magel, a sickle, like magero, nor a saw. It's rather with a knife. Somehow figure out how to use a knife, a big knife, a meat cleaver, to split apart your logs and cut your wood. We find the same in a Beitzah. That what? That the initial concern in the Mishnah is because of muktzah. You can't take from the pile of beams lined up for construction purposes, nor from a beam which happened to collapse on Yom Tov. Because it's not prepared for Yom Tov use, it's muktzah. Now the Mepharshim point out that even according to Reb Shimon, who generally is not concerned about non-designation, but here he's going to agree that it's muktzah because of muktzah machmas chesaron, which we discussed yesterday. On account of its high value, we don't divert construction beams to be used as firewood. Even Reb Shimon agrees to that as considered muktzah. But when you do go ahead and chop wood, be careful to downplay it. Don't use an axe. Now, before we begin, the Gemara is going to address a unique type of axe which has two sides, a double-sided axe. On one side, it's a bit of a wider blade. The Gemara calls it the nakvus and the keva, in contrast to the other side where it's more of a pointy type of edge, which is called a zachar. Generally, the professionals would use the wide side to fell trees, to chop wood. So that side is meant to remain idle on Yom Tov. Avoid using the professional method of chopping. This whole concern of using an axe is only on that wide side. But if you're going to use that pointy side to split apart your logs, mutter, that's certainly okay. It's no different than a kaifetz. It's an improvised manner of chopping wood. Well, pshita, isn't that obvious? But kaifetz not. The Mishnah clearly gives us the license to use a kaifetz, a pointy object. Why would this be different? Certainly, says the Gemara. Of course it would be different. This is an axe. It's a professional tool. Perhaps you can't use any side, which would give the appearance that I'm a professional at work. Perhaps I would think, this allowance applies specifically to the knife, which is not meant to be used for cutting wood. And that could be used on Yom Tov. It's a shina, it's a deviation in keeping with the Yom Tov spirit. But if you have an axe which happens to have a sharp, a pointy side on the other side, well, perhaps the entire axe is meant to be off limits on Yom Tov. It's a professional tool. Perhaps I would say, just as the wide side is also to be used, likewise the pointy side should be off limits. We don't differentiate within the tool itself. Not everybody can tell the difference. Kamash Malan, the Chiddush is no. The wide side, not, but the pointy side, yes. Some applied Rav Chinana's Chiddush on the second part of the Mishnah. So according to the first edition of Rav Chinana, it was actually a kula, that even within the axe we split one side from the other. One side is asr, the other side is mutter. According to the next version of the Gemara, it's going to be lechumra. Even in the kaifetz, which we allow in the Mishnah, but we are limited in its allowance. We limit it only to the sharp side of the koifetz. Apparently they had a double-sided koifetz as well. One side was sharper than the other. So the heter is only on the pointy side, but not on the wide side of the koifetz, which gives the appearance of an ordinary axe, and it's not appropriate for Yom Tov. Some applied this halach to the next part of the Mishnah. Don't use an axe, rather a koifetz. On that we have Amar Rav Chinna bar Shlamim Pnei the Rav. You're limited. Only the pointy side of the kovetz can be used. It's not something which is generally employed in cutting wood. But on the wide side, there's an issa because that's an efficient wood chopper. Well, pshita, of course, isn't that obvious? The Mishnah certainly disallows using an axe. Well, perhaps the same thing would apply to the wide side of the kovetz. That's pashit, that it's us. Not so pashit. And there's room to differentiate, says the Gemara. Perhaps I would think, yeah, the axe is off limits. That's a professional tool. Shouldn't be used on Yom Tov. Aval koifetz v'kardim, but the kardim aspect of the koifetz, the wide side of the koifetz, well, perhaps there's no concern there. It's a knife. Perhaps just as the pointy side is mutter, the wide side should be mutter as well, because it's ultimately a knife, not really an axe. Kamashwan, the chiddush is no. If you want to use a koifetz, be careful to use the pointy side, which is generally not used in the context of chopping or splitting wood, rather than using the wide side of the koifetz, which is a relatively efficient wood chopper. So we have two versions in the Gemara. According to version 1, we're mekel. Although you're not meant to use the kardim, it only applies to the wide side of the kardim, which is generally used for felling trees and chopping wood. But the sharp side is mutter, the pointy side is mutter. It's an improvised manner of splitting wood and chopping wood. According to version 2, we're machmer. Not only is the kardim totally off limits, even within the koifetz, you can only use the pointy side. Continues the Mishnah, Bayis Shumali Peris. If you have a closed room, an inaccessible room, closed with a combination, you forgot the combination. There's no way to get in on Yom Tov. It's full of fruit, full of bananas. V'nivchas, and something happened on Yom Tov, the wall came apart, there you go. Fruit is accessible. Noitel, mimokam apchas, go ahead, you can reach in and access the fruit. Now, what's the chiddush here? Well, actually, how could it be mutter? The fruit within was trapped, is muktzah. So Rashi addresses that question. Let's just see in a minute. He says a chiddush. You can even remove the bricks to get to the fruit. The Gemara soon will explain the reason for this. First, let's see Rashi explains the first halach. It's about 2-3 lines down. Masnissen. So you have a closed-up room which contains peris. Somehow, part of the wall collapsed, and the content is accessible. You can go ahead and reach through that hole and retrieve the fruit. And we don't say muktzin machmas isren. They're off limits. They're muktzah. What kind of muktzah? Why is fruit muktzah? Machmas isren. On account of the fact that in order to access that fruit, you have to do a malacha on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So that's called muktzah machmas isser. The isser prevents access. You can't break apart that wall on Yom Tov. And he sort of is masiach das. He gives up. It's muktzah. So how can the Mishnah allow use of the content? Answers Rashi. Here it's different. Because the kivin de lo have a psichasa yisur deraisa. Because since breaking apart this wall does not entail Issa Deraisa. Why not? The Gemara soon will establish, will interpret our Mishnah to be speaking about uncemented blocks, just lined up one on top of the other, loosely fitting. Breaking that apart is not going to involve an Issa Deraisa. Issa Rabbanon, yes, it appears like a structure, but it's not an Issa Deraisa of soiser. It's not really a properly constructed structure. And therefore, says Rashi, a chiddush, since getting to the fruit doesn't entail Issa Deraisa, lav muktzah ninu. It's not strong enough to make a muktzah. Rashi brings a raya. Could the Amar Gabi Tevel? We find a similar by Tevel. Bishili Pirkin later on. Shu muchanetz al Shabbos, considered non-muktzah. Why? Because separating Truma and Maser is Issa D'Rabbanan. Shim Avar V'Tiknim Mesukkan. If somebody would transgress that Issa, he would be Mata the Tevel Achila. So since there is that potential in existence, and it's only Issa D'Rabbanan in your way, we don't consider it to be Muktzah. That's halacha number 1. Rashi continues, Rav Meir is Machalish, Apoiches L'Chatchila, you can actually remove those bricks and break apart the wall to access the fruit. Says the Gemara, Amai, why? Why are you allowing him to break apart this wall? The Gemara at this point doesn't yet know that it's uncemented bricks. Because Sasar Allah, he's destroying a structure. Issa D'Oraisa. Amrav Nechomi bar Adam Ashmol. Ba'avera de Livni was speaking about rows of levanim, of bricks, uncemented, unattached. And it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan, which we suspend to enable Simcha Yomtiv. Okay, Eini. Says the Gemara, you're allowing breaking apart the wall because it's only Issa D'Rabbanan. Well, there are 2 Issa D'Rabbanan actually. That's a bit too much. There's Muktzah as well. V'amrav Nachman, Hani Livni. You have these leftover bricks, the Yatum and Binyana, which were left behind after construction. Shori, little Tulinu b'Shabbat, you can move them around on Shabbos. Since you can sit on them, it's considered a kli. However, Shraginu, he repiled them up, he lined them up in anticipation of his next construction job. Vadek Tzinu, he certainly now set them aside. It's Muktzah machmach chesar and kiss. It's construction material and off limits. Now, if that was said regarding piling up some loose bricks in anticipation of your next construction job, well, certainly in our Mishnah we have a structure standing here, although uncemented, but it's a structure. He certainly wants it to remain there as long as possible. He's not intending on breaking apart this wall. It's muktzah. It's meant to remain as such. And now you have another concern aside from the Seiser, Oyel Midrabanan, he's actually moving around muktzah. And that's allowed? A double Issa D'Rabbanan? Rab Zera, yes. B'Yom Tov, Aval b'Shabbos, you're right, on Shabbos don't do it. But on Yom Tov, on account of Simchas Yom Tov, where we find that malachas can be done for Eichel Nefesh, well, we do away with the Isuri D'Rabbanan, a double Issa D'Rabbanan, breaking apart the oil, which is Issa D'Rabbanan in this case, and moving around Muktzah as well, to enable Simchas Yom Tov. So that's Rameir's Chiddush. 2 Isura D'Rabbanan can be suspended on account of Simchas Yom Tov, and apparently Rabbanan disagree. Perhaps 1 Issa D'Rabbanan, but 2 is just 1 too many. Tanya Namihachu, we find the same in a Beitzah. Rabbi Meir Omer, Apoiches L'Chatchila V'Noitel B'Yom Tov Amru, Avalei B'Shabbos. This heter, removing bricks to access the fruit, is only for Yom Tov on account of Simchas Yom Tov, but not on Shabbos. So, conclusion at this point, we have like this: fruit stuck in a house, which happened to fall apart, no problem, get to the fruit. Why is it not muktzah? Rashi explained. We're speaking about bricks lying loosely one on top of the other, uncemented. It's only an Issa D'Rabbanan standing in the way between you and the fruit. There's no muktzah. What about actually removing the bricks to access the fruit, which can potentially involve 2 Yisurim? Malach of Seiser Oil Midrabbanan and Muktzah. Rabbi says, sure, Simchas Yom Tov, do what you need. According to Rabbanan, 2 Yisurim D'Rabbanan are too much to allow in this case. Continues the Gemara in a similar vein, slightly related to the previous Gemara. Omar Shmuel Chaysama Sheberkach. You have seals attached to the ground. Rashi explains. You have in-ground pools or wells covered by lids, which are now tied shut with ropes. So that's the Chaysamas. They're tied down, sealed. Chaysama Sheberkarka. They're closing up in-ground structures. Matter. You can untie those knots, Rashi explains, because it's not a permanent knot. It wasn't meant to remain there permanently. It's meant to be open and closed. So untying is never a concern throughout the whole Gemara. Untying these knots, no problem. So that he can do. But he can't unravel. He can't disrupt the rope itself. Nor can he chop the rope. Why? Rashi explains, because He's doing soiser, he's destroying, he's demolishing an in-ground structure. Now, of course, it's not Issa Deraisa because he's not actually destroying a structure, it's just a rope that he's cutting. But he's meddling, he's modifying, he's destroying an in-ground element, let's call it. So it's Issa Medirabanan. It's Issa Soiser Medirabanan. So untying, yes, but disrupting and cutting, unraveling is us. Shebekalim, however, these ropes or strings used to tie together the lid, to tie the lid shut in a kli, matter. So you can certainly untie it, of course. You can even unravel the rope or chop it or cut it, because it's a kli, and there's no binyan or stira by kli. It's mutter echad Shabbos v'echad Yantiv. This halacha, or these halachas, I should say, apply to Shabbos and Yantiv equally. So again, according to Shmuel, if it's in karka, you can untie, but no more than that. When it's in a kli, do whatever you need. And we don't differentiate between Shabbos and Yantiv. Meisir, listen to this kasha. These in-ground seals, these knots, these kisharim, holding together lids in the karka, b'Shabbos matter. You can certainly untie them on Shabbos, no concern. But he can't unravel or cut them. B'Yom on Yontiv, we're more mekel. Mater umafkia v'chaytach. Untie, unravel, and cut. Takash on Shmuel, it doesn't allow more than untying, even if it's on Yontiv. Hamani Rameir, yeah, this Bryce is authored by Rameir, who says you can suspend the Issa D'Rabbanan in the face of Simchas Yontiv. The Amar Av Peiches Lechatchil V'Noitel. Remember our Mishnah? He says you can remove those bricks, although they're involved in Issa D'Rabbanan, to access your fruit. That's why he allows cutting the rope to get to the content. Upligi Rabban and certainly the Rabban disagree. Just as in the Mishnah they don't allow it, here as well. I'm following the Rabban who don't allow suspension of Issa D'Rabbanan to allow Simchas Yontiv. And therefore I said, Chasam Shebekarka cannot be disrupted. Well, do we then find any machlokes pertaining to this case of Chasam Shebekarka? Vatani, listen to this Bryce. Moedem Chacham Rab Meir b'Chasam Shebekarka. Chacham agreed to Rab Meir in this case. Shabbos, of course, on Shabbos there's no heter of Simchas Yontiv of Eichel Nefesh. But Shabbos matter, all you can do is untie. That's it. But he can't unravel or cut the rope. Okay. But Yontiv, however, when it comes to Yontiv, we do suspend the Issa D'Rabbanan to allow Simchas Yontiv. Matter umafkeh v'chaytech. Untie, unravel, cut, no problem. This is the Rabbanan speaking. Because if here's only one Issa D'Rabbanan, and that can be suspended on account of Simchas Yontiv. In the Mishnah, yeah, over there they didn't allow it because it was a double Issa D'Rabbanan. Remember, we had the Soiser plus Muktzah. But Chasam Shebekarka, which only entail one Issa D'Rabbanan, even the Chacham agreed it's mutter. So where's Shmuel coming from? Shmuel doesn't allow this to be done. Says the Gemara, Huda Amar Tana. He found another source, a different Tana, that when it comes to this Chasam Shebekarka, which involves an Issa D'Rabbanan, even on Yom Tov, we don't allow it. We don't allow suspending even one Issa D'Rabbanan to enable Simchas Yom Tov. The Sanya, Chasam Shebekarka. These in-ground knots, matir, you can unravel them, untie them. But not unraveling or cutting. Echad Shabbos v'echad Yom Tov. So this is Shmuel's source. Even on Yom Tov, we don't allow this to be done. Okay, so we found Shmuel's source. So bottom line is, when it comes to Chasam Shebekarka, which only involve one Issa D'Rabbanan, we have Chacham and Rameir who hold that it's mutter for Simchas Yontiv, and Shmuel found a Tana that doesn't allow it. So we answered the kasha. We found the source for Shmuel's halacha. Now the Beitzah continues. Usha bekli, these chosamas that are attached to kalim, b'Shabbos matter, you can untie, right? Untying is never an issue. Avolei mafkev lechoitich, but he can't unravel or cut the rope. B'Yom Tov matter. On Yom Tov we allow it. Untie, unravel, and cut. 1 second. This is very difficult to understand. Because Shmuel himself tells us, I don't allow chopping, unraveling, Chasam Shebekarka. due to the Issa D'Rabbanan involved. But if it's in a Kli, where no Seisa would apply, there's no din of building or demolishing when it comes to Kalim, then we allow even unraveling or chopping that rope. But the Beitzah here disagrees. Even the Chesamas of Kalim, sure, on Yom Tov you can do what you need, but on Shabbos, only untying is mutter, no more than that. Tiratzilach Reisha, sure, you answered the first kasha on Shmuel. When Shmuel began, he said, Chesamas shebekarka cannot be unraveled or cut, even on Yom Tov, which seemed to be a difficult statement. We found a source for that statement. Fine. We found a makar. This Beitzah. Ela Sefer Kash. What about the second part of Shmuel's statement? That when it comes to a Kli, it's unrestricted. You can untie, unravel, and chop, whether on Shabbos or Yom Tov. And this Beitzah seems to disagree. That if it's Shabbos, you can't do more than untying, even if it's a Kli. That's a Kasha on Shmuel. Answers the Gemara, Hamani Rabbi Nechemia. You know what? It's an unrelated concern. It has nothing to do with building or demolishing. When the Beitzah says you can't do more than untying the Kli on Shabbos, it's because of a muktzah concern that has nothing to do with a discussion of Al Gemara. It's a new shita from Nechemia who says you can never use even a Kli for a use that was not meant for that Kli. Da'amar, kol ha'kelim, ein nitolan el derech tashmishan. You can only move a Kli if you plan on using it for its intended use. In this case, he needs a knife to unravel or chop his rope. A knife is meant to be used to cut food. You can't divert its use. You can't use it shaloi kederech tashmishay. That shita is Nechemia. So it's a moktzah concern. Fine, it's a new shita. But the Shmuel wasn't following that shita. The general, the prevalent shita in muktzah does not hold of Nechemia. So it's not a kasha on Shmuel. 1 second, says the Gemara. Nechemia. If you're working on Rabbi Nechemia, if that's what you're basing the Beitzah on, well, then what's the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov? The Beitzah says the Chesamas shebekelim can be untied, whether Shabbos or Yom Tov. But when it comes to more than that, unraveling or cutting the rope, on Yom Tov you can do it, but not on Shabbos. Well, according to Rabbi Nechemia, is a muktzah concern which applies equally to Shabbos or Yom Tov. Ma'ir Shabbos, why is this only a Shabbos restriction? A full Yom Tov Nami, same would apply to Yom Tov. Perhaps you'll say there's a difference. Shani later Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Nechemia differentiates between Shabbos and Yom Tov. Being Shavuos to Shabbos, which is more chamer, in which case you can't divert the knife for this purpose, or Shavuos Yom Tov. To Nisat Rabban on Yom Tov, meaning Yom Tov is more kal. You don't have this restriction. Is that so? That would explain the Beitzah, but it's not really true. Is it true that he differentiates? We see clearly that he doesn't. We have a Beitzah which says like this. We're going to have 3 Beitzahs which seem to contradict each other, and the only way to reconcile, to answer the stira, is by saying that according to Nechemia, this concept of limiting a knife for its intended purpose applies equally to Shabbos or Yom Tov. Let's see. Tani Chada, we have one Beitzah which says Masikin Bekelim. You can actually use kelim, wooden utensils, as firewood, as fuel on Yom Tov. V'ein Masikin B'Shivrei Kelim, but you can't use kelim which happen to collapse, break apart on Yom Tov. Why? Because it wasn't designated for this use. It's like noilad. It turned into a new entity. It was unprepared and undesignated to be used in its current form. And it's muktzah. This is Shittas Rabbi Yehuda, who says designation, preparation in advance is required. We have another Beitzah which says Masikin bein bekelim, bein b'shivra kelim. You can use whether kelim that are intact or broken kelim, no concern. This is Reb Shimon, who doesn't hold that designation is required. And the third Beitzah, Metani Idach, Ein Masikin loy bekelim, v'loy b'shivra kelim. You can't use intact utensils or broken utensils. How's that? Umeshani, and the answer is loy kasha. We're going to answer as follows. Ha Rabbi Yehuda, the first Beitzah which requires preparation and designation is Rabbi Yehuda. Ha Reb Shimon, the second Beitzah which does not require preparation is Reb Shimon. Ha Reb Nechemia, the third Beitzah which says you can't use any of these materials. You can't even use a whole kli as fuel. Is Reb Nechemia who says a kli, use it for what it's meant to be used. You can't divert it for other uses. Now, stop for a second. What are we speaking? Shabbos or Yom Tov. Speaking about fueling, cooking, baking, it's Yom Tov. It's pretty clear that according to Nehemiah, we apply his concept to Shabbos and to Yom Tov as well. And in the Beitzah that we mentioned, we see a difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. That the concept only applies to Shabbos and not to Yom Tov. So it's more Trei Tanoi. But leader Nehemiah, you have two versions of Nehemiah's opinion. According to one version, his concept applies to Shabbos and to Yom Tov equally. According to the other version, we differentiate between Shabbos and Yom Tov. So in summary, we discussed the sugya of chaysamas, these seals, ropes, strings that are used to tie the lids shut, whether in ground or on kalim. So let's go through all the cases. The chaysamas shebekarka. If it's Shabbos, you can untie. Now you realize that when it comes to untying, there's no restriction. Shabbos, Yom Tov, Karka, Kelim, it's all mutter. Rashi explains, it's not a kesher shel kayam, it's meant to be tied and untied on a regular basis, so matter is never a concern. However, mafkia v'choitech, he wants to unravel, he wants to actually cut the rope, so on Shabbos it's aser, it's a derabban, it's a malacha of soiser miderabban. On Yom Tov, we have the Chacham and Rameh who allow, on account of Simchas Yom Tov. We have the other Tana, which is actually the source for Shmuel's opinion. It doesn't allow suspending the Issa Rabban of Seiser even to enable Simchas Yom Tov. We have the Chasama Shebek Kelim. So if it's Shabbos, according to Rabbanon, go ahead, because there's no din of Seiser Baikli. According to Nehemiah, since you're going to have to use a knife for its unintended purpose, unintended function, there's a muktzah concern and it's us. What about on Yom Tov? Again, the Rabban allow. According to Nehemiah, we had a difference of opinion. Two versions of Nehemiah. According to one version, when it comes to Yom Tov, it doesn't have that restriction. You can use a knife for this purpose. According to the other version, even on Yom Tov, the same restriction applies. Okay, time for a quick chazara. What about gathering some firewood from the outdoors on Yom Tov? So we have two opinions. According to Shmuel, it needs to be taken from a safe and secure location, which you're really depending on for Yom Tov use, such as a karfeif. Number two, it had to have been gathered in advance, which is indicative of the fact that it was prepared in advance for Yom Tov use. According to Rav Shimon Elazar's version of events, either one of these two conditions can be met, can be matter, this firewood. Either location, it's in a karfeif, which it depends on, or even out in the field. But if it's mechunas, it's gathered, piled together, that's indicative of the fact that he was mazmin for Yom Tov use. So one or the other. What is considered a karfeif? For the point of our discussion, the maskan of the Gemara was, according to Rabbi Yehuda, needs to be samach leir, that's the determinant. According to Rabbi Yossi, one or the other, either close to the city or even farther away, as long as it's a secure area and needs a pisachas, you need a key to get in there. We have a Mishnah which tells us keep away from chopping wood which is muktzah. Now, if it's a non-muktzah entity, you can go and chop it, but in a way which deviates from the norm, to avoid giving the impression of a malacha, of umnus, of a weekday activity. So the kardam is not meant to be used, but the kaifetz, yes. According to version 1 of the Gemara, which is mekel, the kaifetz can always be used, and the kardam, well, the wide part not, but the pointy side, yes. According to version 2, the kardam is always off limits. It's a professional tool. When it comes to a kaifetz, even then we limit its use only to the pointy side meant to split the wood, as opposed to its wide side, which is a more efficient wood chopper. You have fruit stuck in a enclosed home, and somehow the wall came apart, you can reach in and take out the pears. Can you actually pull apart the bricks which are uncemented to each other? According to Rabbanan, no. We have two Isuri Muktzah, we have two Isuri Rabbanan, Seiser and Muktzah. According to Rameir, we do away with two Isuri Rabbanan to enable access to that fruit on account of Simchas Yom Tov. We concluded the halacha of Chaysamas Bekarka, Chaysamas Bekelim, with a unique sheet of Nehemiah who says that all kelim, Even a knife can only be used for its intended purpose, otherwise considered muktzah. All the best to you and much atzlacha.